Beverly and Elliot are back to their medical practice, but they look a bit different than how they did back in 1988. Jeremy Irons have now been swapped for Rachel Weisz and Rachel Weisz in the Prime Video series Dead Ringers. This series has a lot of disturbing and mysterious undertones, but is it actually worth watching? Elliot and Beverly Mantle are twins who share everything: drugs, lovers, and an unapologetic desire to do whatever it takes, including pushing the boundaries on medical ethics in an effort to change antiquated practices and bring women's health care into the forefront. So if you've seen David Cronenberg's Dead Ringers, you know that it is a disturbing and unsettling tale. Well, now with this Prime Video series, we get that same sort of ominous, creepy, and just plain messed up narrative. Rachel Weisz plays both roles, and she does an excellent job crafting two very separate and dysfunctional people, but also she manages to keep them extremely similar so that sometimes telling them apart is incredibly difficult. The 6-episode series starts off with a barrage of imagery that it's really made to cause discomfort and maybe even a little bit of confusion. The Mantle twins are gynecologists and obstetricians, so all of their focus is on pregnancy and birth. And because of this, we have some very detailed shots of the birthing process. So if you're squeamish or just uncomfortable seeing that, the very start of the show might shock you a bit. This whole production is designed to unnerve the audience. There are editing tricks that are employed all throughout the show that work to agitate, confuse, disorient, and sometimes even titillate. For instance, all throughout we get glimpses of something that haunts the twins from their childhood. So there will be quick flashes of incongruous scenes where the images are clearly shown, but the context is obscured. And they're only shown for a brief moment before returning to what's going on in the present. And sometimes this is repeated a lot, creating almost a strobing effect that at points it began to make my head hurt. There's also some amazingly annoying use of a vibrating phone during the final episode, and the droning that it produced, it just set my teeth on edge. All while enhancing the building intensity of the dark story content that was racing towards the climax. And this is what the show really excels at, creating situations and atmospheres that keep the audience off kilter. Weisz plays her parts expertly, and she creates characters that are both despicable and sympathetic. And some of the time, and especially at the beginning, where I didn't know which character she was portraying because the switch was seamless. And outside of her performance, there are others that help to build this damaged world. Jennifer L. isn't in this a ton as a potential investor, but when she is, she nails her character as a corporate Satan. Cold, calculating, and detached, they only begin to describe how she comes across. I mean, she is ruthless and cruel with people's feelings, always focused on her investment goals and everybody else be damned. And although it is uncomfortable to watch, it's also strangely captivating. Brittany Oldford has a fairly large and pivotal role within the plot, and I like the dynamic that's created between her and the Mantles. It's often tense, sometimes quiet and loving, but also tumultuous. I mean, her character is an unforeseen complication between Beverly and Elliot, and as dark and twisted as some of the core interactions become, she adds good drama to the mix. There's one point in the final episode that showcases an interaction between her and Jennifer L., and it's anxious and awkward, compounding all the other heightened emotion of that scene. One final character that plays a great supporting role, but is ultimately a massive enigma within the narrative, is Greta. She's played by Poppy Liu. Now, she's the Mantle's housekeeper, and she's got some very weird habits that we see play out in bits and pieces over the course of the season, until... and again, we get to the finale. And that's when the behaviors are explained. Sort of. I mean, this is a thinking show, so it's not all spelled out for us. But what we see from Greta is a visual representation and a manifestation of mindsets and influences the Mantles experience. And I love that tie-in. It brings the story around full circle, but not in an overt or simplified way. The story asks us to work a bit at the meanings. I mean, we don't have to work too hard, but some effort is expected. And that's true pretty much of the entire storyline. We slowly watch a relationship transform, but what makes it so unique is how the players swap places back and forth. So how much are they actually transforming? I mean, in one sense, I'd say we see tremendous character growth in the twins. And in another sense, I'd say we see absolutely zero growth, that we just watch our characters finally accept who and what they are. I mean, either way, the story's gripping, even if it is difficult to watch, and it's also incredibly depressing. Now, I love the visual stylings of the production. It's very art house in just about every way. There are strange angles that are employed, dark and brooding environments, and they're typically bathed in a deep and rich color. Sometimes it's blues or greens, usually it's reds. And the camera also alternates between putting us right into the personal space of the characters and then being detached and more than an arm's length away in order to keep us unknowing strangers. There are also some very creatively captured shots that are designed to tweak us. And I love how the camera shows us typically a duo shot, even if only one character is present. I mean, it continues the ongoing narrative of necessity, belonging, and connectedness. So, guaranteed, this show isn't going to be for everybody. It's slower in pace, even though there is a building anxious energy to the presentation. It's also just very weird. I mean, it's almost artsy just to be artsy. There are points when it does feel pretentious, but also it's beautiful and unsettling and even thought provoking. Rachel Weisz is superb in the dual roles, carrying the unhinged storyline from start to finish in a way that makes her both hero and villain. And the story is designed to ruffle feathers and create stress, which I think it accomplishes with ease. This is certainly a worthy remake of Cronenberg's disturbing classic. And although it's something I'm not going to ever wish to watch again, I can really appreciate the creative and probably twisted eye that it took to pull this off. There's a lot of sex and graphic nudity, almost non-stop profanity, and a bunch of visceral violence. I give Dead Ringers 4 out of 5 couches. So what's a haunting movie or show that you've really enjoyed? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.